The Galactic Council Hall was a testament to the cooperative ingenuity of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Suspended within a Dyson sphere that encased a radiant dwarf star, the hall floated serenely, its shimmering exterior reflecting the glow of the cosmos. Inside, a vast circular chamber housed representatives from thousands of species, each seated within translucent, levitating platforms designed to accommodate their unique biologies. Today, the chamber was more animated than usual. A tension hung in the air, palpable even among the more stoic delegations. All eyes, some biological, some mechanical, others more alien, were fixed on the representative from Earth. Humanity's ambassador, Evelyn Ray, stood on the human platform. Though diminutive in stature compared to many of the other species present, she carried herself with quiet confidence. Her sleek diplomatic suit bore no embellishments beyond the Earth insignia on her chest. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat bun, and her gray eyes scanned the room with calm determination. Standing directly opposite her was Emperor Zalak Threx of the Zorath Empire, his imposing arachnid form bristling with disdain. His carapace gleamed under the ambient light, and his multifaceted eyes glittered like black diamonds. He towered over his platform, his voice booming as he addressed the assembly. "Counselors of the galaxy," Zalak Threx began, his tone dripping with condescension. "We gather here today to address the continued arrogance of the humans. They speak of diplomacy, of restraint, yet they wield none of the power required to back their words. Their warnings are laughable, their presence here an insult." The chamber erupted into murmurs. Some species, like the cautious Vixil philosophers, clicked their mandibles in agreement. Others, such as the Clearans, shimmering beings of liquid metal, rippled with amusement. Still, a few remained silent, their expressions unreadable. Evelyn didn't flinch. She had faced hostility before, and she knew how to hold her ground. When the murmurs subsided, she stepped forward and spoke, her voice steady and firm. "Emperor Zalatrex," she began, her tone measured. "Humanity has no desire for conflict. We are here to collaborate, to build bridges. But I must remind you, as I have reminded others before you, that provoking humanity is a mistake. Please, don't make us mad." Laughter erupted from the Zorath delegation, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the chamber. Zalak Threx leaned closer, his mandibles clicking in mockery. "Is that a threat, Ambassador?" he sneered. "Because it sounds like one. And I assure you, your species is in no position to make threats." Ambassador bowed his head, showing respect for the president. He looked up at the sky as if praying for grace. Evelyn held his gaze, unyielding. "It's not a threat, Emperor," she replied. "It's a warning. Humanity values peace, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. History has shown us the cost of unchecked aggression, and we have learned to act decisively when pushed too far." The room fell silent. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of energy fields and the faint whispers of distant stars. Zalak Threx's laughter returned, louder and harsher than before. "Decisively? Your kind? You speak as though you are a power to be feared. But you are nothing, a fledgling race on the edges of the galaxy, clinging to outdated notions of diplomacy and restraint. You will bow to the Zorath Empire, as all others have." Evelyn sighed, a flicker of something ancient and weary crossing her expression. "You misunderstand us," she said quietly. "Humanity's restraint is not a sign of weakness. It is a choice we make because we understand what we are capable of when provoked. Please, Emperor, reconsider your path." But the Zorath leader was beyond reason. "Enough of this nonsense. Threx roared. "The Zorath Empire does not negotiate with the weak." He raised one of his spiked limbs, signaling to his delegation. "We will show the galaxy the futility of human defiance. Prepare your colonies, Ambassador. We are coming." The meeting adjourned in chaos. Delegates argued among themselves, some condemning the Zorak Empire's aggression, others blaming humanity for antagonizing them. Evelyn left the chamber with a heavy heart, her steps measured and deliberate. Waiting for her outside was Commander Elias Vance, a seasoned military officer and one of humanity's key advisors in interstellar affairs. His rugged face betrayed his concern as he fell into step beside her. "That went about as well as expected," Vance remarked dryly. Evelyn shot him a sidelong glance. "They think we're bluffing." "They always do," Vance replied. "Until it's too late." Evelyn nodded, her expression grim. "The question is, how much damage will they cause before they realize their mistake?" Vance didn't answer. He didn't need to. Both of them knew the cost of underestimating humanity. The Zor's first move. True to their word, the Zorath Empire wasted no time. Within days, their fleet crossed into human-controlled space, targeting the outermost colony of New Dawn. New Dawn was a relatively young settlement, home to 500 humans and a growing trade hub. Its defenses, while advanced by human standards, were no match for the overwhelming firepower of the Zorath fleet. When the Zorath ships appeared in orbit, they broadcast a single message: submit or be destroyed. The colony's governor, a pragmatic woman named Sophia Lang, responded with characteristic defiance. "This is human territory," she declared. "We will not submit to tyranny." The Zor response was swift and brutal. They unleashed a barrage of kinetic projectiles and plasma strikes, reducing the colony's surface to smoldering ruins. Thousands perished in the initial attack, and the survivors were rounded up, their fate uncertain. For the Zorath, it was a demonstration of power. For humanity, it was a catalyst. In the late 19th century, humanity's response. Back on Earth, news of New Dawn's destruction spread like wildfire. The loss of life was staggering, and the images of the ruined colony ignited a firestorm of outrage. The United Nations of Earth convened an emergency session, with representatives from every nation and colony debating the best course of action. The room was a cacophony of voices, some calling for retaliation, others urging caution. Evelyn Ray stood at the center of the chamber, her presence commanding the room. When she spoke, the noise died down. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady, "we warned them. We gave them every opportunity to avoid this path. Now, they have crossed a line." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. "We value peace," Evelyn continued, "but peace cannot exist without justice. The Zorath Empire believes our restraint is weakness. They think they can destroy our colonies, our people, without consequence. They are wrong." Her gaze swept the room, her words resonating with conviction. The chamber erupted in applause, a unanimous show of support for humanity's next steps. In the days that followed, humanity mobilized. Ships, weapons, and soldiers were prepared for war. But the Zorath Empire had yet to learn the truth behind humanity's warning. And when they did, it would be too late. The destruction of New Dawn sent shockwaves through human-controlled space. In one brutal, calculated assault, the Zorath Empire had demonstrated the depth of their aggression and their disdain for humanity. For the colonists who survived the attack, the world they had carefully built was now ash and ruin. For the rest of humanity, it was a clarion call, a message that the warnings they had long offered to the galaxy were no longer enough. The Zorath Empire had made their move. Now it was time for humanity to respond. A cry for justice. 1. The news of New Dawn's fall spread quickly. Streams of footage from fleeing transports and orbital drones showed the devastation. Cities reduced to glowing craters, forests burned to charred husks, and survivors huddling in makeshift shelters, their faces pale with shock and grief. The sight of it all stirred a primal anger among the people of Earth and its colonies. In the United Nations of Earth's Central Chamber, the air was thick with urgency. Delegates filled the circular room, their voices echoing as they argued over the proper course of action. The holographic image of New Dawn's charred surface hovered above the center of the chamber, a stark reminder of what was at stake. Evelyn Ray stood in her usual position near the center of the chamber. Her hands rested on the polished surface of her console, but her expression was anything but calm. The devastation weighed heavily on her shoulders, and though she had always prided herself on her composure, her voice now carried the edge of righteous fury. "This cannot go unanswered," she said, addressing the assembly. "The Zorath Empire has crossed every line we have drawn. They have killed our people, destroyed our homes, and threatened the principles of peace and coexistence we hold dear." Glora Ankelder looked around the room and said nothing. The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. "They think us weak," Evelyn continued, her voice steady but forceful. "They believe our warnings are hollow, that our diplomacy is born of fear. But they have made a grave mistake. Our warnings were not empty threats. They were attempts to spare them from the consequences of their actions." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Now, they will learn what humanity is capable of when pushed too far." The chamber erupted in applause, and for the first time in decades, the United Nations of Earth voted unanimously. Humanity would strike back, not in anger, but in the name of justice. Mobilization. Humanity's military forces, long tempered by restraint and diplomacy, now turned their full focus to preparation. Across Earth and its colonies, fleets were assembled, soldiers trained, and advanced technologies brought out of storage. This was not the humanity of the early 21st century, fragmented and hesitating. This was the united might of a species that had grown stronger through hardship and adaptation. In orbit above Earth, the Endeavour, a sleek, state-of-the-art battleship, prepared for departure. The ship was humanity's flagship, a symbol of its technological prowess and ingenuity. Its hull shimmered with adaptive camouflage, and its weapon systems were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. On the bridge of the Endeavour, Commander Elias Vance stood at attention. His sharp eyes scanned the readiness reports as his crew worked with practiced efficiency. The room buzzed with energy, but Vance's focus was unwavering. He had been chosen to lead humanity's first response, and he intended to ensure it was both decisive and unforgettable. "Status report," Vance barked, his voice cutting through the hum of activity. "All systems operational," replied Lieutenant Naomi Price, the ship's weapons officer. "Fleet is ready to jump on your command." Vance nodded. "Good. Let's show them what happens when you provoke humanity." The Zorath's triumph. Meanwhile, the Zorath Empire celebrated their perceived victory. In the grand halls of the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zalak Threkth basked in the adoration of his court. His multi-legged form moved with satisfaction as he addressed his advisors and generals. "The humans are as weak as I expected," Zalak Threkth declared, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "Their colonies fall with little resistance, their ships are primitive, and their warnings are nothing but bluster. Soon their entire species will kneel before us." The court erupted in cheers, their voices a cacophony of triumph. But among the clamor, a lone advisor hesitated. Her name was Calix Ra, a strategist known for her sharp mind and cautious approach. "Emperor," she began, her tone careful, "while the humans may appear weak, I urge caution. Their warnings have been consistent. It is possible they possess capabilities we have yet to encounter." Zalek laughed, a grating sound that echoed in the chamber. "Kalixar, you worry too much. The humans are no different from the dozens of species we have conquered before them. Their words are empty, their strength a mere illusion." Kalixra bowed her head, though her mandibles twitched with unease. She had studied humanity closely, and there was something about them that set them apart. But the Emperor's arrogance was immovable, and so she kept her concerns to herself. The shadows in the void. As the Zorath fleet moved deeper into human-controlled space, they encountered their first anomaly. Sensors aboard the Devourer of Worlds, the flagship of the Zorath Empire, began picking up strange readings. Beethoven's Strange Conchita. "Commander, we're detecting distortions in the fabric of space," an officer reported, his voice tinged with unease. "It's as if something is moving through subspace, but it's not showing on our primary scans." Zalek dismissed the report with a wave of his clawed limb. But the anomalies persisted. Shadows flickered across the void, too large and too fast to be natural. Ships on the edge of the fleet reported strange energy signatures before falling silent. Then, without warning, the fleet's communications went dark. On the bridge of the Devourer of Worlds, chaos erupted. Officers shouted over one another as systems malfunctioned and displays flickered with static. Zalek slammed a claw onto his console, demanding answers. "Explain this," he roared. Before anyone could respond, the darkness outside the viewport shifted. A human ship emerged, its design sleek and angular. It was smaller than the Zorath vessels, but radiated an unsettling energy. Its surface shimmered with an almost organic quality, and its engines emitted a low, pulsating hum that seemed to resonate in the very bones of those who heard it. The human ship broadcast a single message across all frequencies. "You were warned." The counterstrike. The Endeavor led the charge. Commander Vance's fleet moved with precision, striking at the heart of the Zorath invasion force. The initial engagement was swift and brutal. Zorath ships, accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with brute force, were caught off guard by humanity's advanced tactics and weaponry. The Endeavor's weapons systems unleashed beams of concentrated energy that sliced through Zorathian armor like paper. Other human ships deployed experimental technology, disrupting the Zorath's fleet's formations and leaving them vulnerable. In the chaos, the Devourer of Worlds became a primary target. The Endeavor focused its fire on the massive flagship, disabling its engines and weapons. A final, calculated strike reduced the Zorath flagship to debris, taking Emperor Zalek with it. Across the battlefield, human forces pressed their advantage. The Zorath fleet, once so confident in their superiority, crumbled under the relentless assault. A new warning. When the battle was over, humanity broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. Evelyn Ray appeared on screens across the Galactic Council, her expression calm but resolute. "To the species of the galaxy," she began, "let this be a reminder. Humanity values peace above all else, but we will not tolerate aggression. Those who seek to harm us will find that we are not as weak as they believe." She paused, her gaze steady. "The Zorath Empire has learned this lesson the hard way. We hope others will not make the same mistake." As the message ended, the galaxy watched in silence. Humanity's warning had been clear. This time they would not be ignored. The destruction of the Zorath fleet sent ripples across the galaxy, a seismic shift in the balance of power that could not be ignored. For centuries, the Zorath Empire had ruled through fear, subjugating weaker species and expanding its borders with ruthless efficiency. To see such a dominant force not only challenged but dismantled by a species they had deemed insignificant left the galaxy in stunned silence. But humanity's victory was not celebrated universally. To some, it was a revelation of hidden strength. To others, it was a chilling demonstration of a power they had not anticipated. And for a select few, it was a call to understand the truth behind humanity's warning. Why do they keep saying, "Please don't make us mad"? The aftermath of war. Earth was quiet in the days following the battle, but it was the quiet of preparation, not complacency. The Endeavour and its fleet returned home to a hero's welcome, yet the mood across humanity's territories was somber. The loss of New Dawn was a wound that still ached, a reminder that even in victory, the cost of war was steep. Ambassador Evelyn Ray stood before the United Nations of Earth, addressing representatives from across humanity's colonies. Behind her, holographic images of the Zorath fleet's remains floated, a visual testament to their triumph. "Let us not mistake victory for security," Evelyn began, her voice carrying the weight of her conviction. "The galaxy is watching. Some will see us as allies to be courted, others as threats to be eliminated. We must prepare for both." They both looked. Her words were met with solemn nods and murmurs of agreement. Humanity's leaders understood the precarious position they now occupied. The question was no longer whether humanity could defend itself, but how long it could maintain the fragile balance between deterrence and peace. Troubled Council. At the heart of the galaxy, the Galactic Council convened to address the events that had unfolded. Representatives from thousands of species filled the vast circular chamber, their voices raised in debate. The Vixel philosophers, known for their careful deliberations, were among the first to speak. "The humans have shown us that their warnings were not idle," said Councillor Quarix, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "We must seek dialogue with them, understand their capabilities, and avoid further conflict." The Clearans, beings of liquid metal, rippled in disagreement. Dialogue? With a species that obliterates its enemies so thoroughly, they are a danger to us all. Others, like the amphibious Kitarans, were more pragmatic. The debate raged on, but one thing was clear: the galaxy could no longer afford to ignore humanity. Uncovering the mystery. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, Calyx R, the lone Zoroth strategist who had questioned her empire's actions, worked in exile. She had survived the destruction of her fleet by chance, escaping in a damaged shuttle during the chaos. Now, she sought answers. Calyx Ra had always been fascinated by humanity, even before the war. Their rapid ascent from a single-planet species to an interstellar presence was unprecedented. But what intrigued her most was their repeated warnings, their insistence that provoking them was a mistake. She had obtained fragments of human records, encrypted files recovered from a derelict ship. Though much of the data was corrupted, one term kept appearing: Project Threshold. "What is this threshold?" she muttered to herself, her claws tapping on the console. The phrase appeared alongside references to ancient conflicts, technological leaps, and something called the Burning Epoch. Her research led her to the Human Archives on Io, a heavily guarded facility in orbit around Jupiter. Though infiltration would be risky, Calyx Ra was determined. She had to know the truth. Io, humanity's secret vault. The Human Archives on Io were a marvel of engineering, buried beneath kilometers of ice and rock to protect their contents from both physical and digital intrusion. It was here that humanity stored its most sensitive information, including records of its darkest chapters. The structures were covered with a thick layer that fell back lightly upon the Chap Squad structures. Calyx Ra's infiltration was meticulous. Disguised as a cargo drone, she bypassed the outer defenses and descended into the archives. Once inside, she shed her disguise and began her search, her multifaceted eyes scanning rows of glowing data terminals. Finally, she found it: Project Threshold. The file was heavily encrypted, but Calyx Ra was a skilled hacker. As she worked, fragments of information began to emerge. Threshold Initiative, established following the Burning Epoch to safeguard against existential threats. Warning: access restricted, content classified as Omega level. Humanity's survival demanded measures beyond morality, beyond comprehension. Threshold is both our salvation and our curse. Calyx Ra froze as the final lines of the file appeared, their implications chilling her to the core. They came for us once. We will ensure it never happens again. The file ended abruptly, leaving her with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear. Humanity's warnings were not born of arrogance or bravado. They were rooted in something far deeper: the legacy of the Burning Epoch. Back on Earth, Evelyn Ray sat in a private briefing with Commander Vance and other key officials. The topic of discussion was one humanity rarely spoke of, even among its own: the Burning Epoch. What Calyx Ra found on Io was inevitable, Vance said, leaning back in his chair. The galaxy was always going to dig into our past. It was only a matter of time. Evelyn nodded, her expression grim. Do you think they'll understand? She laughed and said, Think they've got the catchy name for pink and purple? Vance shook his head. No, they'll fear us, just as they should. The Burning Epoch was humanity's darkest era, a time when the species had faced extinction at the hands of an alien invader. The war had been unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Billions had died, entire planets reduced to lifeless husks. In the end, humanity had prevailed, but the cost had been unimaginable. Out of that crucible had come Project Threshold, a last resort measure designed to ensure humanity's survival at all costs. Its details were classified, but those who knew of it understood its purpose. Threshold was not a weapon, it was an inevitability, a line that could not be crossed without catastrophic consequences. The galaxy reacts. Word of Calyx Ra's discovery spread quickly. Though the full details of Project Threshold remained elusive, whispers of humanity's past ignited fear and curiosity across the galaxy. The Galactic Council convened once more, this time with Evelyn Ray as a guest. She stood before the assembly, her expression composed but resolute. You have questions, she began. I will answer what I can. Counselor Quarix was the first to speak. Ambassador, what is Project Threshold? Evelyn hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Threshold is a safeguard. It exists because we have seen the worst the galaxy has to offer, and we have survived it. It is not a threat, but a reminder. Humanity will not be extinguished. Not again. The room erupted in whispers. Counselor Calyx Ra, who had been granted a temporary seat on the council, spoke next. Ambassador, is it true that your species faced annihilation, that you prevailed through means beyond morality? Evelyn's gaze met Calyx Ray's, a flicker of respect passing between them. Yes, she said simply. We faced annihilation, and we did what was necessary to survive. Now we are free to attack a new horror, the present. Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. A new balance. As the council debated, the galaxy watched and waited. Humanity's actions had changed the interstellar landscape forever. Some species sought alliances, hoping to stand alongside the formidable newcomers. Others retreated into isolation, wary of provoking the sleeping giant. For humanity, the message was clear. The galaxy had learned why they kept saying, "Please don't make us mad." The warnings were not a bluff. They were the truth, born of pain, resilience, and a promise never to let history repeat itself. And as Evelyn Ray returned to Earth, she couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy's understanding of humanity was far from complete. The reckoning had only just begun.